Hi guys. I just wanted to come on here and encourage you and really really make sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're standing for something and not falling for everything. Such as what Malcolm X said. I do truly believe that everything that we're taught is some form of propaganda, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's marriage, whether it's covenant relationships, occult spirits, Freemasonry, even psychosis and frequencies and things of that nature. I feel that witchcraft is still used to inherit money. And, they do say money is the root of all evil, but it's what you do with that money that really makes a difference. So I just wanted to encourage you guys. So if, you've come across me and you've went to school with me or you've met me online, don't believe everything that other people tell you or that you see, or the different behavioral aspects or features that you see. I feel like this is bigger than me. It's a calling. I don't necessarily feel like I have to be conventional with changing the world. And then, the reason why I said that, America is a republic is because it literally says for the republic when you recite the pledge, or when you say the pledge. It's literally a slave anthem. All they want you to do is believe in all of these different ideologies, and that's necessarily not the way. That's why I went to the school I went to. A lot of people do not know that I come from a white supremacist and that I come from Black people, and I'm facing so much opposition with my family. And it's really, to be honest, it's really because, there's a lot of gossip. Gossip is a form of witchcraft. So whether you're dealing with white magic, blackjack, gambling, or whatever, even if you don't deal with all those things, but you still talking, you're still contributing to witchcraft in some form of fashion. So if people say I got diarrhea in the mouth or I can't hold water, you have to know that came from somewhere. It didn't just come from, my own head or my own ideology. And honestly, maybe I could still be very childlike. But here's the thing, when you're trying to heal your inner child and you're trying to heal your mother wounds and your father wounds, and you're trying to, get out of a narcissistic cult, or you're trying to, stop yourself from love bombing and from this idea of perfectionism and legalism. I do see why I want to be a lawyer, and I also see why I'm under this pressure to be perfect. But you can't have both at the same time. You can't worship God and money. And so I feel like within the Hollywood entertainment industry, of course, you have these girls that are getting naked, and also saying that they believe in God and everything, and that there is a message behind every story. But here's the thing, you don't have to get naked to make a statement. You don't have to have these homosexual roles to make a statement. You don't have to, you don't have to conform to you know, the seasoned saints idea of what you should be as far as church. You know, you can you can wear whatever you want to church. I mean, that scripture is often misinterpreted the most. Come as you are. You're literally supposed to come as you are. You don't have to come with your Sunday best on. You really don't. I mean, why do you like and I'm going to be honest, it's not just the white man that you know, created this ideology that, you know, that we shouldn't be a part of the LGBTQ community, or, you know, that we shouldn't be religious or hyper religious, you know, and people say that's why you should have a relationship with God. But even when you have a relationship with God, it's still hard, you know. There's a lot of hardship that we face, and, you know, obedience is better than sacrifice, but I still feel like sometimes, you know, God has to show you why he said no in order for you to get something. And, you know, of course, you can still make it to heaven, and but I don't necessarily feel that like you should believe that, oh, we should be poor. You know, God gave us the power to produce wealth. You know, God God says to have agape love, you know, charity, and another form of you know, charity and other ideologies or so. So, you know, I think everything is propaganda. The commercials we watch, the medicine, the fried chicken, Chick-fil-A, or Popeyes, or you know, nothing is good for you. So, you know, if we're in America and we're experiencing all of these different things with the weather and everything, and I'm gonna be honest, I do believe in ecofeminism. Like, basically, how you treat women is how the world will how the world will be. So if we're always disrespecting women and tearing them down, and especially within the community of these marriages, and then you have these side situations, you have these side babies, or you have these side chicks, or you have the fiance and the baby, or the baby mama, baby daddy generation, which is probably why I don't have kids or anything like that. And then also, you know, some things are bred out of church hurt. I've faced a lot of church hurt, you know. People have really projected things onto me, and I don't like that, you know. This, like, you know, the fact that I'm an idiot, you know, or the fact that I'm retarded, or the fact that I have a mild case of mental retardation, that's been projected upon me, because here's the thing, I'm one of the smartest people you'll meet. You know, I'm one of the wisest women you'll meet. You know, I've had prophecy that has said, you know, I'd be Abigail the wise woman. And honestly, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I literally feel like Sister Mary Clarence sometimes. If you've ever saw the movie Sister Act or Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, and that's why I love the movie so much. Why do you think I love Lauryn Hill so much? You know, why do you think that I like Doechii so much? Why do you think that I like Megan Thee Stallion, or like why do you think I like Kylie? Even though Kylie is said to be a cultural appropriator. But here's the thing, we all came from a woman. I do feel like the Black woman is the second self of God. I do feel like God in of itself is a woman. I mean, because you can't necessarily have a man without a woman. So this idea that we live in a patriarchal society, this is the man's world, I don't really agree. I mean, this world started with a woman. I don't necessarily feel like, you know, this ideology that, you know, God is a man is accurate. And so I'm just fighting a lot of demons, that have been projected upon me, things that I may have tapped into at an early age, things, that I may have tapped into. And I'm going to be honest, I've done social work, I've done education, I've said I wanted to do music. I've said I wanted to do so many different things, and I'm going to be honest, I've been through every humiliation ritual known to man. So I don't necessarily feel like it's anyone's place to say who you can love or what you should believe in, because at the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to be honest. Marriage is a covenant. Marriage is a ministry. You need covering. But here's the thing, Paul was a single man, be ye single, for I am single, or be single how I display being single. And then, I don't really understand this idea of following after your mother or your father. Or if you follow me, you'll have everything you want. Oh, if you do this, if you bow down to me, I'll give you everything you want. That's kind of satanic in a sense, and I really hope that, we can get to the point where, we're not defined by what our parents do. It's never, I don't necessarily feel like it should always be about what your parents teach you, because your parents, yeah, they made some mistakes and everything. There's no perfect manual on parenting, but, don't get mad at me because you were in a predicament to whereas you chose to have me, you didn't necessarily have to, so, and I just feel like it's a lot of different things, the fact that I went to school, and didn't have kids, or the fact that it's projected on me that if I have kids, I'll have a high-risk pregnancy. And the thing is, I don't really agree with that, because here's the thing. You can eat anything you want. Anything. You can eat anything you want. And you could be with whoever you want. The thing is, it's all an illusion, because here's the thing, all of these ideologies and all of these different religious cults and sext, SECT, all these different ideologies and this idea of worshiping celebrities and worshiping certain deities and worshiping the worshiping the messenger instead of the messages. So like they said, in this day and age, they don't buy the music, they buy the brand, so if I don't necessarily practice femininity the way I should, then that's on me, we all got here, whether it was out of wedlock or whether it was intentional. But I don't necessarily feel like, the fact that you're unequally yoked should be a reason why you shouldn't, pursue things. And to be honest, I've been hurt by men, Black men that are of the millennial generation and are colorists. They say they want a light skin or they want all these different shades, which is fine, be color struck, but don't pit me against another woman and say, lighter skinned women have better attitudes, or white girls, give better fellatio. It's just all these different ideologies that are put against each other. And then, I'm going to be honest with you. I love culture vultures. I really do. I would say I'm a culture vulture, but I'm really not, in a sense, because I'm the blueprint. The Black woman will always be the blueprint. I don't have to inject my lips Botox. You know, I have small lips. I mean, yeah, I have small lips. I don't have big full lips. And this idea that, you know, Kylie Jenner or Jania or Jada Chavez, if I'm saying her last name correctly, or Summer Walker, the idea of this idea that like the female enhancements that you get, that means you hate yourself. I don't necessarily feel like that's true. I feel like a woman in any form, she's beautiful. But of course, her original look, her original phenotype, you know, everything of that nature. She was always beautiful from the beginning, even if she didn't see it. So, you know, when people tell me, oh, you have low self-esteem, well, here's the thing. If you got low self-esteem, that's seen as bad. But if you have high self-esteem, that's seen as bad too. That's seen as grandiose. So you think you're better than somebody. So, I mean, you know, or the fact that this idea that we can't be gay, especially women shouldn't be gay, but a man can be gay. Or if a name is gender specific, like my name, some believe that it should only be for a woman, while others believe that it can also be a unisex name, such as a guy named Taylor or a girl named Taylor. So I just don't get the hate that I've gotten like over the years, you know. I really don't get that because, you know, if, you know, I have to tell a woman she's beautiful or she has the biggest booty or, you know, I like her bitties or whatever, just to be goofy or just to uplift her, then that's me. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gay or that I'm a stud or that, you know, I want to be down with women. I mean, what is wrong with me telling a woman she's beautiful? You know? And then I'm going to be honest. When girls tell me I'm beautiful, I don't necessarily feel like the best in the inside. I'd be surprised if they be like, oh, you got a nice ass. I'd be like, what? Thank you, you know? So it's just all on how you look at things. It's just really perspective. You know, this idea that we're gold diggers if we marry a white man, or this idea that we're gold diggers. This idea that, you know, white women are gold diggers, or if a man leaves a black woman for a white girl, you know, he's sending clear messages out to his own people. And honestly, you know, I'm not gonna lie, you know, it's just a lot of learned behavior. Nobody's ever came into the world not liking somebody because of their skin color. They were taught that. So it's just what we've been taught and what we've been conditioned to think. And the thing is, even with psychology and all of these things, the people that say that we're mentally challenged or that we're slow or we didn't know you were that smart, you know, and it's not to say that I haven't microaggressed other people, because I have. And it's not to say that other people haven't microaggressed me, but who are you to tell me about myself when you don't have yourself together? Like that scripture in Matthew that says, you know, don't worry about the plank in another person's eye if your eye isn't clean. So it's just a lot of things. And, you know, what is respect? Treating people the way you want to be treated. You know, respect, I feel like, is given. It's not earned. It should be given. And the thing is, you know, in the Black community, we're often taught, oh, you know, respect our elders and everything like that. And honestly, I'm going to be honest. Like, these women, these older women are jealous of these younger women because here's the thing. You're at this job or you're in this same position, you know, for these amount of years, and you see other women coming and, you know, getting up the hierarchy, you know, because a person sees who they really are, you know. And the thing is, you know, You know what they love to say, especially Maya Angelou, when she said, when a person shows you who they are, believe them the first time, right? So, at the end of the day, I could literally go global at any time, and those same people will come back to me and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, how did you do it? How did you get through it?" And then, and that's why you have to, like, even when you're in positions of power, when you're a judge, or when you're a lawyer, or when you're congresswoman, or when you're this or that, you have to watch what you say, because that can be you, especially this idea in the mental health field, in the psychiatric ward and everything. They love to label us as we're crazy, or they love to treat us and be nonchalant and have an attitude. They love that. But baby, like, that can literally be you tomorrow. That could literally be you in 2 minutes, you going through a psychosis. And the thing is, I'm going to be honest, what we may have been taught in Africa, or even in America, or wherever we're from, like all the different religions and all of that, I feel like that can be used to deliver somebody, no matter what it may look like. I'm not necessarily saying that, oh, we should be going to bed with each other, because whatever God does in the spiritual realm, the devil is going to emulate in the flesh. So of course I understand that, you shouldn't marry somebody that has multiple wives, or you shouldn't be sleeping with somebody, female or male, behind closed doors. I understand that. Or you shouldn't watch certain things. But the thing is, just because I watch certain things, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's gonna jump on me. It's all about what you've been exposed to. I mean, yes, I've dealt with necromancy, but when I wouldn't get a quick enough response, I decided to cancel it. I've dealt with I've dealt with them burning candles and going into the spiritual realm too. But, like, here's the thing. Gossip is also, one of the biggest forms of witchcraft. And this goes for anybody that be talking, anybody. And that's why they say, watch what you say, because it could come to pass and everything. So if I say that, hey, my person or a loved one didn't do what another loved one said, and it turns around and jumps on me, or it's a transference of spirit, then, God is going to hold me accountable. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people saw me as a sweet girl. A lot of people saw me as somebody that was nice, or somebody that's too nice and could be taken advantage of. I do feel like I'm angelic. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm God's angel, or I'm God's elect. That's religious psychosis. But at the end of the day, the Bible does say, be vigilant, be alert, sober mind. Don't get drunk with strong drink. Of course it says that. So at the end of the day, it's just all on how you look at things. I understand that, I can't buy a woman gifts, that I can't show up at her house, unannounced. I have to get permission first. I understand that, but if God led me there, that's something different. And then, they tell you not to believe, because I don't really understand this. They tell you not to believe in all of these Disney movies or the little stories, or the little nursery rhymes, or the card games, or the board games and things of that. But I feel like everything is a symbol of something, everything has a racial undertone to it, like Miss Mary Mac all dressed in black, or lemonade, crunchy ice, sip it once, sip it twice, turn around, touch the ground, freeze, double this, double that, all of that. I like the colored boy, he likes me, so stop that white boy, he don't shine. Like, all of that, even musical chairs, like, all of that is like symbolism and everything. So, and it's not to say that you can't necessarily have like those types of things going on, or the idea that your day, like your actual birthday, shouldn't be celebrated, especially when they say blow out your candles and make a wish. I mean, that's literally ingrained in our culture. Like, that's our culture still. And even in New Orleans, that's our culture, but I do feel as though, if I want to learn something, if I want to go to school for something, then that's me. If I love school that much to want to be educated and want to, because they love to tell you, oh, you don't got to go to school for everything. Oh, you got all these trades, or you got all these degrees and you don't even use them. Or you can't just, you can't just have your accolades on the wall. I mean, you know how many people get a degree and then don't go back to school? Or you know how many people get a degree and then get on drugs? Or you know how many people get delivered and then don't stay delivered? So it's just one thing after the other. And I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily have to step foot in the church to encourage somebody or to change the world. I don't necessarily have to go to an institution to change the world, honestly. You could praise God anywhere. You could praise God in the comfort of your own home. You could praise God in your mind. But sometimes your mind is tormented with other things, so it's not like God didn't hear you or make you believe that, like, you're not listening. And that's the thing. I'm just going through a lot of transformation, a lot of transitioning, You can't always stay in your mother's land, and you can't always stay in your father's land. I mean, look at Lot's wife. Lot's wife, literally, she looked back when, everything was burning down for Sodom and Gomorrah, and she turned into a pillar of salt. So, of course, you can't, if you have too much salt, then, that's not a good thing. Just like high blood pressure, that's too much. You're having too much sodium. And then, it's harder to get those nutrients in and everything of that nature. And then, diabetes. If you're eating too many carbs, whether you're eating too much rice, or too much bread, or too much pasta, if you're eating all of those things, or you're not eating enough protein or enough fiber, that's bad. So don't believe what people tell you. You can eat whatever you want and still exercise. But here's the thing also too, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. But here's the thing, I feel like you need everything. Like, you shouldn't necessarily believe this propaganda. Most of these celebrities out here, they're vegan, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. And it's for the longevity of life. You don't have to eat like your father once did or your mother once did. You don't necessarily have to eat that. You don't have to eat the pig's feet. You don't have to eat the pork. You don't have to eat the chicken, the fish. You don't have to eat any type of meat or anything. You don't have to. But, if you want to, just make sure you pray over what you're eating. Even the vegetables, the things that are considered healthy, that's sprayed with chemicals and pesticides too. Even the oat milk or the almond milk, all these nut milks and all of these plant-based milks, they're necessarily not always healthy for you either. So, it just goes to show you that all of this is propaganda. And honestly, I don't care who tries to refute this or reject this, because at the end of the day, everything is just programmed to get you to think, to get you to, as a distraction, to get you off course. If you want to get married, before you have kids, if you want to get married while you're in school, if you don't want to get married, if you don't want to have kids, if you want to practice seminary, if you want to participate in music, you don't necessarily have to sell your soul to do it. It says, what profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And that's why it also says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You have to renew your mind. So, and a lot of people probably think that, I got a perverted mind because I like girls, or I'm too analytical, or, or I believe in shacking up, and sometimes I feel like you have to cohabitate, to really understand that person and really live with that person. And sometimes, if you don't want to do that, then that's fine, and I'm going to be honest, just because a person is a certain, of a certain political agenda, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all good, or that good things are going to come from that. The world will always be evil. So if they're telling you to read Project 2025, like, oh, you should read it. No, you don't have to read it, because here's the thing. The world will always be evil. It don't matter who makes a difference in it from generation to generation. It will always be evil. These are the last and evil days. And honestly, it just depends. Some people think that the rapture already happened, and, the rapture just takes place from generation to generation. They just think, of course the world is going to get even more evil. It's always like that, whether you believe in all the third eye stuff and all of that. So, God, I feel like God gave you 15 senses, not 7, but 15, your mind, your body, your will, and emotions, everything is open. So when you have all these ailments and everything, you can't necessarily say, oh, that there's no cure for this, or there's nothing for this. And, that's why, these conspiracy theories people will try to get you with. But it's about what you believe in. Like Malcolm X said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And honestly, since I was a kid, and maybe that's why I want to rededicate my life to God. Because I got baptized at the tender age of 10, I feel like religion is used as a form of control, or, women that have toxic masculinity, they don't like the fact that, you want to practice femininity, but you just haven't been taught that, they don't like that. So, it is important to speak what you want to see. Not everybody is going to be a billionaire. There's still going to be the working class. There's still going to be the middle class. HOA, that's just designed to keep Black people in oppression. Why would you want to get an HOA house, when you're paying the mortgage? You're doing all these, you're paying the insurance, you know, you're doing all of these different things. So who are you to tell me what I can and can't have in my house or outside of my house? Like, that doesn't make sense. And even with redlining, you know, they're just using clever real estate taxes to keep you out, you know, and some people milk the system. So I don't necessarily believe that everybody that comes over here for the right reasons. And, you know, it's great what President Obama did. You know, President Obama did what he could, but I don't necessarily feel like he did anything for black people. I'm sorry, I don't. We were happy with him as a status symbol. You know, will we see another black president in office? You know, I don't know. You know, is the world ready for a black woman president? I don't know. I think we need more time. I really do. You know, and I just think that it's important to focus on yourself and focus on the things that you want. You don't necessarily have to give into these ideals, you know. And to be honest, the society is ever changing. You know, you were once mentally deficient if you were homosexual, and then there's still convergent shock therapy going on if you're homosexual. And then, you know, I'm gonna be honest, my personal belief is transgender is a choice. And you know why it's a choice? Because here's the thing, you know, people influence you, but here's the thing, it's targeted to children saying, oh, I want to change the way I look, you know, but it's literally just to legalize pedophilia, you know. I don't necessarily believe that just because you're homosexual, or just because you're transgender, or just because you like someone based off of their intelligence, that's anything wrong with that. But I do believe that, you know, if you're over-sexualizing a child, that's kind of heinous. And the thing is, you know, everybody was a child once. Like, we don't know what people have tapped into. We don't. You know, there are women out here molesting women, you know. There are women out here molesting boys. There are men out here molesting children. So, of course, you know, with the DSM-5 and the whole psychiatric and psychology, I just feel like those are, you know, certain things designed to keep you oppressed. That's all it is, you know. All it is just programming. But, you know, I'm going to be honest, you know, in 2020, there was this video circulating, and there was this black woman, and she said they're trying to legalize pedophilia. And you really shouldn't be doing that. I mean, you know, if you abuse the elderly, that's considered bad. You know, if you abuse children, that's considered bad. Like, I feel like every population that is on this earth is vulnerable. You know, whether you're white or whether you're mixed racial ancestry or things of that nature, you're still vulnerable in some way, you know. And sometimes, you know, things are designed to keep you oppressed. Things are designed to keep you suppressed. And, you know, you have to get to the point where you want to manifest what you see, because that's the only way, you know. And to be honest, you know, it's actually considered evil if you make plans for tomorrow. That's why people say God spares, or Lord willing, or God willing, you know. And yeah, we shouldn't be swearing. We shouldn't be worshiping God and having cuss words come out the same mouth, you know. That's serving two masters. And the thing is, you know, you have these people in these high positions that, you know, like to sell you this idea that, oh, if you follow this principle, you'll get to where you need to be, and all of this other type of stuff. Or, you know, that when you get to the end of your life, you know, that, you know, God is going to tell you that he wanted more for you, but since you chose this route, I can only do so much. But here's the thing. Everything that you've gone through, designed, whether it was for your good or bad, that's a part of your testimony. That's the way that God intended it for. Like, you don't think that he knows that you were going to that you were going to do certain things that he wasn't proud of. And see, that's why I don't necessarily believe one sin is bigger than the other sin, you know, but I don't necessarily agree with this convoluted form of, you know, mind control. You know, some things are meant to keep you trapped, you know, but, you know, you have to get to the point where you feel free and where you feel like you're not in captivity. You shouldn't listen to any type of words that come out of their mouth, a person's mouth, that you don't necessarily agree with. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't necessarily feel like I'm confrontational at all. But you know, people get mad when you say a certain thing a certain way, and they feel as though you're having an attitude, or that you didn't treat them, or that they didn't treat you that way. But it's all on how you look at things, you know. But I'm going to be honest. The Black community does not stick together. And you know why we don't stick together? Because it's not the fact that we're just taught self-hate. It's the fact that, you know, there's a lot of gossip. You know, there's a lot of division, you know. And, you know, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of white people that don't like Trump, but they still fight like hell to defend that man. They still have that cultural commitment. We don't have that as a people. So, you know, and I'm going to be honest. No, I can't tell a man who to love. And I do feel like the men that are more feminine than most, I feel like they do choose to marry outside of their race a little more than any other man. But I don't necessarily feel like that's a bad thing. You know, the world is not going to be all one color, you know, or, you know, but I don't necessarily feel like we should be conditioned to believe that, you know, recessive traits are better than dominant traits, or vice versa, you know. It just really depends. So I just wanted to encourage you guys to keep going in your pursuits. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you know, you'll get to where you need to be, whether it takes 4 years, whether it takes 40 years, you know. The Israelites, they had to wander in the desert for 38 to 40 years. I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily feel like we're cursed people. I feel like we can band together and get out of these systems of oppression. And yes, they will find new ways to attack us and overthrow us, but we're still here. So, I mean, God ain't finished with us. So it's just all on how you look at things. And I hope I was able to encourage somebody. You know, I do see people coming back to me and apologizing and asking me how I did this and how I got over this and how I got over that. You know, I understand that the meek shall inherit the earth, that you should be humble, but I don't necessarily feel like you should be belittled because you chose to allow your head to swell because you got your degree or you made a certain accomplishment, or that you should just be focused on other people's validation or approval. And then the thing is, you know, you could be the most quiet person, and people see that as a weakness, or they see that as a strength, and they're mad that you're quiet, that you've read them, you know, without having to talk to them, you know. Or they could be mad because, like, you protect your energy or you don't give people access to you. But here's the thing, you know, God never said to, I want to be careful with how I say this. God never said to focus on who loves you, you know. God said to love your enemies and bless those who persecute you. So all the things that I've been through from before birth and now, whether it's people in elementary school, because every kid is different, all kids, they don't have the same upbringing. Some kids are more extroverted and other kids are more introverted. We don't know what people have been exposed to. So if you feel as though, you got to ask me if I'm sexually active in elementary school, there's a problem with that for me. Because to be honest, you shouldn't be in elementary school having sex. So, or this idea that, before we reach puberty, that we have to have, all these different ideas of how long you should have a boyfriend, whether it's a day or a week, or this idea that you're gay because you hang around females more than males, or vice versa. Or this idea that you're always smiling, so that means you're gay. Or this idea that just because you like color and you tell people that, oh, that's a symbol for the rainbow, and the rainbow stands for LGBTQIA+. You don't necessarily have to fall within a certain category. You can like boys and girls. I don't necessarily feel like you should be liking, especially if you're a grown person or anything like that. I don't necessarily feel like you should be liking kids, because that's just not what that is. But honestly, I'm just going to be honest. I don't want to do something I can't come back from or send out the wrong message. I feel like people are always going to talk, whether you do bad or good, whether you believe to be good or believe to be evil, people are always going to talk. So you have to do what's best for you. You have to make your own decisions. I don't really know what else to say to anything, but to take care of yourself. I mean, you don't necessarily have to work out 7 days a week, and eat nothing, or to fast from, these different things that are not good for us. Now, it's not to say that, one should eat 3 meals a day. I feel like that's just a form of control from colonialism. And I'm going to be honest. No, I don't like the fact that certain cultures eat with their hands. Yes, that means trust, but I don't know what you're doing with their hands. I don't know if you're digging in your nose. I don't know if you're putting your thumb in a person's butthole or anything like that. So that's why I don't trust that. So you just never know. It's a lot of things going on, and I just hope that I can encourage somebody, don't stop being who you are, or don't change your personality for anybody. And, if you're down with the crowd, that's a problem. If you're introverted, that's a problem. If you talk too much, that's a problem. If you don't talk at all, that's a problem. So it's just all on how you look at things. And yeah, everything ain't for every audience or platform. Of course it isn't. But if I could reach my target audience, then that's fine. So at the end of the day, I just want to encourage you guys to keep going, and, just to protect your spirit, establish boundaries. Some of our families, we don't know what boundaries are, because, we've allowed people to seduce us into believing that, that they're love, or that you could see the good in people. And, people really give me a lot of crap for, what I choose to do. Oh, I don't like her because da-da-da-da. Or I hate her because of da-da-da-da. Or this idea that social media isn't reality. If it isn't reality, why are we using real world court systems to justify getting protection, especially if you're being malicious, and then also knowing that you're not going to be in the same place as this person any longer, but you're still feeling as though they're going to follow you. Like, no, some people, you weren't designed to be for or with from the beginning, like the Bible says. It also says there's a time and a season for everything. There is a time to kill. There is a time to weep, a time to grow, things of that nature. A little while and the wicked will be no more. The wicked will blow like chaff, all of that. And that we're not supposed to stand in the seat of sinners or take the way of mockers, things of that. Meditate on the word day and night, and you'll be replanted like the streams of water, Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. Jesus was tempted with every temptation known to man. But here's the thing. When it comes to homosexuality, I don't see him like that. I really don't, Jesus is a great man. So, and yeah, I know he loves me so much, even if I don't necessarily get love from people, that's fine. I'm gonna be honest. I don't ever think I was for people in the beginning. And that's why I say I don't have any friends, because here's the thing. You could say, oh, we was friends in high school and we did this and we did that, or but it was really the opposite. You bullied me into believing that, I'm a homosexual, or that, that I shouldn't like the color green or something like that. Just the slightest thing could be, snowballed. So it just depends on how you look at things. And that's why when you get into these jobs and when you get into these certain positions, and they treat you certain ways that, they shouldn't be treating you, even with rules and ethics in place to fight that, it goes to show you how you should treat other people when it comes to what you build, So if I have to leave my immediate family and create a whole new generation where, it's the way it's supposed to be, that nobody is talking about nobody, and nobody's crying over this person and crying over that person, and nobody's wrestling against flesh and blood with their hands instead of the spiritual realm, then, you should focus. You should focus on you at the end of the day. So I just wanted to encourage you guys, and thank you, and stay blessed.